Welcome to Great at Customs. This is your host, Josh. And today we are going to do a hopefully not super long video. We'll kind of see what happens here. But what I am doing is doing a resin clear casting resin pour on our Honda mold. These are Honda badges, emblems, like so. And I have made a mold so that this is the reverse of that. I've got some mass products, deep pour epoxy, and this is typically used for river tables and stuff like that. It's designed to be poured pretty thick. I don't have too much more than probably about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch. I've already mixed my 3 parts of A and 1 part of B. I don't know if these are going to be keepers or these are going to be just a test, but I've got 16 ounces of mixed product here. And I'm literally just going to pour it right in the top once it's thoroughly mixed here. I do have a extra mold that I have to fill up the difference. And the extra mold is a Bonneville Land Speed Streamliner. So anything that doesn't go in our Honda badge area is going to be turned into a clear streamliner. This stuff is pretty cool. I could throw this in a vacuum chamber and degas this. This does have about a 5-hour open window, so I think it's going to air release on its own. I might hit it with a little bit of heat and kind of do a step cast with it just to release the air bubbles. I'm not going to throw it in a vacuum chamber for today. This is kind of a proof of concept to make sure that it works like I think it's going to work. The game plan is to pour this, pop it out, maybe put a layer of carbon fiber on the back of it. Since the front of it's going to be clear, it'll be kind of a nice deep emblem. So you would see the carbon fiber on the back side of it. We'll see what happens here. I'll do the carbon fiber another day, but for today we are just going to mix up this epoxy, and again, really well mixed. I could switch cups as well, just to make sure that there's no unmixed residue on the walls of the cup or on the bottom, whatever. I'm not going to get that picky for today's application. Some people will say mix epoxy in 1 cup, transfer it to another cup, mix it in another cup again. You know, it's 6 1, half a dozen the other when it comes to this stuff. Kind of depends on the product and your shop temps and how long you mix it. But this is just a test run, just a trial run. Make sure the concept is working good. Make sure the badges look good when they pop out. Pretty exciting stuff, huh? Just mix and mix and mix and mix. Sorry, it's not more adventurous. I don't know if you guys can see here. This is pretty water clear. This is pretty water clear right now. I can see tiny little bubbles in here. Like I said, I could put this in a vacuum chamber and degas this and get all those bubbles out. I have a sneaky hunch that they're going to mostly air release on their own. This isn't a very deep resin pour, so the deeper the resin pour, the more difficult it is for the air bubbles to actually release. But for what we're doing right now, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. All right, there we go. So what I am going to do though, is I am going to grab a paint stick here. I am going to just kind of tap the side of the cup. This is kind of the homebrew poor man's version to get the air bubbles to rise up to the top. Any sort of vibration will help the air movement. Ooh, got epoxy all over the place already. We'll see what happens after about a minute here of tapping on this. See if I can get some of the air bubbles to come up to the top. If I can't get them to come up to the top, what I am going to do is I have a fancy dancy propane torch. And so what I'll end up doing is basically running the propane torch right over the top of the epoxy, helping some of the bubbles, some of that tension burn off basically. A lot of the resin cast tabletop guys will use that technique. And it works. It works. Just got to be careful that you don't burn whatever you're working on, right? So this mold has been waxed 5 times now. And so I'm going to just start a quick pour in the center of the Honda badge, or approximately the center of the Honda badge. Oh, I've got so much extra resin here, it's not even funny. Ah! Let's roll this cup around here. Pretty fancy. And I'm just going to keep pouring this out until we stop against our gum tape. That's going to be my wall, I guess you would say, my retaining wall to keep the liquid in one place. Hopefully, as long as my platform here is fairly level, it'll be nice and flat on the back side. Just kind of let that sit for a minute. Pretty fancy, huh? How you guys doing in the chat? And then, like I said, what I'm also going to do here, since I have some extra resin, is I'm going to pour the little mini streamliner mold as well. Rotate our cup around. This one's going to probably take a couple different tries here. It's going to be a very, very slow pour. This is not a quick set epoxy at all. Like I said, this has got basically about a 5-hour open window. So we're going to pour it today and let it sit overnight at least. Might even let it sit for a couple days before I try to demold it, just to make sure it's fully cured. One thing that you got to think about when you're dealing with these tabletop epoxies is they are mass exotherm sensitive. So the more material you have and the greater the mass is, the more heat is going to get generated. The heat is what helps cure the system out. So you do need heat. Shop temps right now are about 70 degrees, which is what you want to be working with. And a little dirty secret about epoxy pours, just because the resin is hard does not mean that it's actually cured. So just to give you guys a heads up, This is looking pretty good so far. I'm going to add a little bit more resin here. Just a touch of resin. I want that to go all the way up to that stopping wall. So yeah, one of the big misconceptions with epoxy is once it actually dries, it's actually cured out. That's not the case. Epoxy typically takes about a week before it's actually fully cured out. So do not be in a rush. I'm just going to do a little squeeze action on our streamliner mold here. Try to get any micro bubbles worked out to the top. And again, I could have degassed this, put it in a vacuum chamber, and sucked all the little micro bubbles out. I don't think that's necessary for running a test part. We're going to get the idea of if it works or not without doing that extra step. But if you do have a vacuum chamber, by all means, throw your epoxy in a vacuum chamber, give it a good degas, and it's not going to hurt the project, put it that way. And there's just a couple itsy bitsy little tiny bubbles there on the surface. I don't even know if you guys can see those, but they'll get there. They'll work their way out. With a 5 hour open window, the air's got to go somewhere, and it will work itself to the surface. The cup is looking pretty water clear though. I don't see any bubbles in that, so that's a good thing. I'm going to move this streamliner out of the way for just a second here. And I will fire up the propane torch and just kind of burn off whatever's on the top surface here real quick. There we go, like so. And this is going to be just a very quick back and forth. You're just trying to break the surface tension for any little pinholes that might be on top. You can also use a heat gun if you don't have a propane torch. I think that should be the ticket. Let me take a quick look at that here. Yeah, that looks really, really good. You can see, I don't know if I'll be able to see the reflection of that, but you can see the light, the shop light right there. Pretty glassy, pretty glassy. Yep. So any luck, what's going to happen here is I have 2 layers of this vacuum bag tape, this gum tape. And what that's going to do is hold the resin in place, obviously, when it's curing. And then I'm going to lay 1 layer of carbon fiber on the back of this as a reinforcement. And then once I demold this, I'll basically have 2 Honda badges, a left and a right. And like I said, since we are going to be mounting this in the car, I'll end up putting LEDs around this acrylic. And so that'll end up lighting that whole area. The Honda badge will glow. Should look pretty darn cool. I'm hoping that that's not leaking out right there. Right there in the corner there. I thought I had a pretty good seal. I don't want that to leak out, so I'm going to have to keep a quick little eye on that, but I think we'll be okay. Like I said, this is just a test run, so there we go. Mass deep pour epoxy, part A, part B, 3-to-1 mix ratio. Pretty cool stuff. And we are done for the day. We are off to the races. So the only thing left to do is let this cure out and then kind of keep you guys in the loop over the next couple days and let you know how it worked. It's either going to go really, really good or really, really bad. So we'll find out once the epoxy cures, and we'll rock and roll from there. So have yourselves a wonderful evening. I'm going to hop off the live. If you're not subbed, like some videos, share it if you like. Hopefully you guys can learn something and inspire you to do your own custom projects at home. So anyway, I'll catch you guys all later. Have a good one, and see you next time.